it's a very important organization because it's what credentials us, not only in the United States, but in Canada, and now they've just opened it up to countries around the world. So it's the gold standard for interior design. And every piece of legislation, California does require the supplemental exam, but every other piece of legislation, including in Canada, requires the NCIDQ. And to Scott's point, we can't at this point regulate our title. We don't have the laws to do that, but in our firms, we can do that. Our firm leaders can stand behind us and say the gold standard is the NCIDQ, and you aren't an interior designer unless you pass that. And many big firms do that. And some of my colleagues might see me parading around the office chanting NCIDQ, but you can see why it's very important. I mean, it's setting that level. So when someone who opposes our opposition or legislation might say, you shouldn't be credentialed, you don't know this, you don't know that. Well, having that gold standard that we all have met as minimum competency proves that we meet the requirements set by any sort of law. And I think it's really important. So if you are an interior designer or practicing in interiors and you're not considering the NCIDQ, I might think again, because it's the next wave. And it's not only for legislation, but it's also for job marketability. You know, as Kelly said, if you're not getting your NCIDQ, you're probably not moving up anywhere. You're not considered an achiever. You're just, you know, it's not showing any ambition. So I think it's really important to meet that standard so that, as with architects, you can't be an architect in your office unless you've met your registration and taken the ARE. It should be the same for interiors, whether or not we have regulation.
I kind of grew up in the global design firm world. I worked for two amazing design firms that supported interior design, and you could not move forward within either of those organizations unless you were NCIDQ qualified or you actually went through with your certification. So in California, I worked for HOK, and they were crazy supportive because one of our principals was the president of IIDA at one point. They were not going to they were saving face to some degree as a large corporate entity, but our little group, man, we cared, and that was where I got the majority of my education from why it matters as a business owner. Fast forward a couple years forward, I worked at Gensler in Baltimore, also an amazing company who supports this conversation. And now as a small business owner, we have 12 people who work with us, and you have to go to a 4-year school in order to work for our firm. And within 2 years, you have to take the NCIDQ, and I'm like, you're out? No, you're not out. We're going to help support you. We're going to give you the resources. But we're going to really encourage you to take that test because it is so important for everybody in this room.
I think educating legislators on what that exam actually looks like and what students have to do to prepare for that exam, that it's not just to show up, put your name on a piece of paper, put in some paint colors and some fabric swatches, and that's it. Explaining what that actually means and what that exam looks like, I think, is critical.
There's a lot of science and research behind how they develop the exams. In 2010, they converted the sections to 3 sections, or 7 sections. There's space planning, lighting, hand drafted. And after that, as of last year, they made it digital, and now all sections are taken via a computer, and it's applying different code-related building systems. There's some space planning aspects, but it's moved very much towards the code regulation to align with where we're going in terms of legislation. So I remember when I took it, there were calculations for carpet and draperies, and I was just like, why does this matter? So I think we've moved away from that because I've never calculated a drape or a carpet in my life because I don't do that. I work in commercial interior design, and it's okay to do that, but you don't need to be regulated to measure carpets and that. So it's advanced really far, and I think it's really probably would be surprising to people who aren't intimate with that exam and the heavy, intensive preparation required to pass it. So if you need information on it, I will gladly be your resource. There are also interior design or NCIDQ ambassadors as a program where people can come and speak to schools, speak to your workplace. Tom Banks, who's the CEO of CIDQ, will come out. He'll come to events. He was just in New Jersey. So whatever information that you may be needing to help understand the NCIDQ and its value, we can provide that to you.